അവിടുന്ന് മണ്ണിറങ്ങണം
Andrea Law shares her inspiring journey from Chief Operations Officer to compassionate nurse and advocate for EMS. From her work in wound and ostomy care to balancing motherhood and content creation, Andrea opens up about the emotional challenges, rewarding patient connections, and lessons learned along the way. Together, Andrea and Noon dive deep into the importance of collaboration between EMS and nursing, the ongoing fight for recognition in healthcare, and the personal side of grief, growth, and gratitude in patient care. Let's get started. Hey guys, are you looking for a top-notch first aid kit? Look no further than Jump Medic. Owned by a seasoned paramedic with over a decade of EMS experience, their kits are user-friendly and packed with essential supplies. From the most popular Pro Gen 2 to the compact hardshell kit, they've got you covered. You can even customize your own kit with the Build-A-Bag option. Enter the code NOON10, N-O-O-N, the number 10, and enjoy 10% off your order. Free U.S. shipping, and everything is HSA FSA approved. Visit jumpmedic.com and follow at JumpMedicUSA on Instagram. Stay prepared with Jump Medic. All right, Andrea, thank you so much for joining us on the Noon podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
I'm so excited to have you here. I have been seeing you on TikTok for some time now. Not that I'm addicted to TikTok or anything, at least I'm going to say that. Let's go ahead and get an introduction of who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. So I am Nurse Andrea Law, and after working about 10 years in business, which I loved and was pretty good at, I decided to switch over to nursing. Most of my experience is in home health, which I absolutely love and adore, specializing in wound and ostomy care for patients, a lot of chronic disease management and whatnot. Recently finished my master's in the last few years, as well as have maintained certifications in wound and ostomy and case management.
So you said that you were in business for 10 plus years. What made you go from business to nursing? That's a huge leap of faith right there.
That it really is, and that's a great question. I loved working in business. I felt like a shark, and I really was good at what I did. I was working at the Better Business Bureau as the chief operations officer, as a matter of fact. But I realized that it would be really hard to uh, move up without having uh, higher education, and especially hard. There wasn't a lot of job security, not too many jobs for the amount of people looking for work in that area. And so, with what was going on in my life, I needed a career that had a little bit more job security that I could provide for my family, but also I really wanted to help people. And I had that element at the Better Business Bureau based on, it was a nonprofit agency, but I wanted to help people in a different way that maybe was more rewarding and thought maybe that was part of it. I had already had a degree in psychology because I mean, let's just face it, after I took abnormal psych, I absolutely just loved that class. Thought maybe I would want to be a psych nurse eventually. And so I have a couple family members working in different medical fields. And so they were like, hey, why don't you try nursing? And I was like, I mean, blood, gross, vomit, poop, all that stuff, so gross. I don't really want to have anything to do with that. They kind of were trying to convince me to get into that right out of high school, which I put a kibosh on that. But after much consideration, I decided, you know what, let me go back and just see how this works. I definitely believe in having a divine plan. Um, and if it was meant to be, it was meant to be. You still got to put the work in, but I feel like you'll know if it's right when you're in it doing it. So I kind of trusted my gut, got into nursing. Nursing school was super, super challenging. Didn't think I was going to make it, but I did it and did it well and never looked back. And I never, not in a million years, especially after my ADN program, the associate degree program, thought I would go back again for a bachelor's. and then for a master's, and hopefully someday, maybe for my DNP. We'll see
Oh, you're crazy.
if I can tolerate another discussion post in my life. I will consider that. But that was kind of my route to nursing.
And then you went from ew, blood, gross to I'm gonna work in like one of the nastiest parts of nursing that you can do, which is wound care.
Yes, now I'm picking medical grade maggots out of venous stasis ulcers on patients' legs and loving every second of it. Yes,
Ugh,
it's a strange world we live in, and it's funny how you can just get used to things that you don't think you could get used to, and you can do harder things than you think you can.
that's true. That is have you had anything that's made you second guess what you're doing yet?
Oh, there have been situations that make it really hard, either emotionally, spiritually, or um, in a frustrating way. I don't think has made me reconsider what I'm doing. Um, I think sometimes, yes. Yes, I think sometimes we do, but I think when you kind of step out and look at the bigger picture, you realize that those issues can be managed and worked around. So I think ultimately, no, I think this is where I'm meant to be.
That's good. I figured it would probably be a little easier because you did the business side, so you did a lot of time without nursing.
Hmm.
And then you get into nursing, you're like, what the fuck am I doing right now?
Oh, yeah. And it's so funny because I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to get an MBA. That's so much school. Who's
And
a
then
clown
here we
now?
are.
Here we are after I've got four college degrees now, thinking about going for another one, multiple certifications. And regardless of that, even if you don't go back for all of that, you are literally still learning every single day. So there's just so much learning involved, and everything changes. The
Yes.
equipment that we're working with, the technology, just the research is constantly changing. And so you can't stop learning.
And so, how do you incorporate all of that learning with juggling content creation and four kids?
Terribly, let me
Oh, I
say.
doubt that.
Um, I think I'm probably not a great example, but I think you have to just really be elite level at time management. And I think if you get to the point where whether you're a nurse or a paramedic or you do any of those hard programs, you've learned a fair amount of time management, or you just would not have made it in order to, plan time for studying for the tests and going to the labs and just allocating time for your family and for yourself as well. And so I think each of those experiences along the way kind of stretched me a little bit further in my knowledge of that and my abilities in that. And it's enabled me to uh, give the time that I need to my family, try to give the time that I need for myself while also managing my career and the fun content creation stuff.
Oh, you're crazy. I don't know how you do it. So you said that you do more like home visit type of stuff. I know that in our industry, we try really hard to put a very hard line between how much we get to know the patients, right? For our own safety and our own souls. How do you balance that line when you're going to people's houses?
Oh gosh, you're asking all the tough questions. I'm terrible at that. I definitely keep a professional boundary because patients will constantly be asking you to cross that. Um, but I think that you can really reach a patient when you're seeing them over a period of time on a different level when you do know them and you do care about them, and when they kind of know you too. Yeah, you don't want to overshare, and it is ultimately all about the patient. But in some instances, the patient wants to know about you and they want to have the same caregiver. And so there are times where you don't know how deep you're sinking into how much you care about a patient, in the sense that when you lose a patient or when things terrible happen in their life, it just, oh, goosebumps, it just touches you so deeply, that you feel the pain that they feel. But in a sense, too, you also celebrate the accomplishments on a higher level than you can feel, I think, when you're trying to manage and or stifle certain any like a connection with a patient. So yeah, you filter out the bad when you're trying to, just keep things super 100% professional, but then you miss, I think, the good part of that. You don't get to celebrate the wins as much, I guess you could say, as you avoid the losses in a sense.
Do you have any examples of wins that you've been able to participate with patients for?
Oh, absolutely. So many. One great example is I had a young girl who we really only treat adults. So pretty much all my patients are 18 and up, and she was on the very young side of that age range. And in her situation, she unfortunately was shot in the abdomen, dropped off in the ambulance bay by her friends, and left there. And, obviously the hospital does their thing and they send the patient home to us and we manage the wound care side of it. And unfortunately, she had a PICC line with some IV antibiotics that she was on. She had a wound vac to her abdomen where, they had to go in for exploratory surgery and the wound was not healing very well. So we were trying to manage that as well. And she was a beautiful, gorgeous girl, really intelligent, had a lot of aspirations and goals. And you wouldn't know that by how she presented at the first visit. She was just so depressed. She just lived every visit in her one room, never came out of the rest of the house. I mean, sometimes I would see her from one visit a few days later to the next. She's in the same clothes
Mm.
and just really at a rough point in her life. I mean, it's hard enough to be 18, 19, 20, 21 without trying to recover from being shot by your friend. So being there for her to listen to her stories, because when that happens, you really realize who are your actual friends. Because it's not cool to go hang out with your friend who's stuck at home when you want to be out at the club or, out at the movies or out with your friends or getting into trouble. Like that's, so she really had no friends. Her whole world was cut off in an instant. And so I was her sole connection to the outside world outside of her family, which, as you probably have seen, the family gets the worst of it. They get the attitude, they get the frustration, they get cut off in a sense. And so they don't necessarily want to be like that to the home nurse. And so you're the bright ray of sunshine that comes in. How are you? What's on your mind? What do you want to talk about? And I would be there a good hour, hour and a half, a couple times a week doing, all of the procedures and things like that. And I just slowly got to see her coming out of her shell and changing. And I would just notice little things that, she would have changed her clothes. She would have curled her hair to go nowhere. She would have put on some makeup. She would have music in the background. And she was pretty surprised when she had this Spanish song in the background and Andrea busted out singing Spanish. I didn't know what a word was, but I knew what that song was. And she just thought that was the funniest thing that Andrea was singing in Spanish, a song I had no idea what it was. Um, and we just kind of connected on a different level that helped her to heal not only her wounds but her heart and her spirit, and that to me was so rewarding. And we still keep in touch. This is probably 5 or more years ago and we still keep in touch, and she has actually entered into law school and just really had regained a spirit and established a new normal for herself. And I was honored to be a part of that journey for her. Very rewarding.
That is amazing. Do you find yourself having a hard time doing that with everybody?
Yes, and I don't necessarily see I work for multiple agencies, and some agencies you follow your patient, which I think the continuity of care is best.
Hmm.
But Andrea is one of the more expensive nurses. And so a lot of times they won't have me follow a patient. They will have either an LPN do the routine visits or they'll only send me on difficult patients who have a difficult ostomy or something that maybe the other nurses couldn't manage. So there's not the majority of my patients I don't see quite as regularly. Her case was very complicated with the wound vac, and so that was kind of why I was in there seeing her primarily, because everybody else was like, nope, I don't want to go, I don't want to mess it up, I can't do it, I can't get a seal. So I followed her. So for the patients that I don't see quite as often, I think it's easier to um, you always want to go in and be polite and be smiling and build a good rapport, but I think you don't necessarily build quite that connection when you're not seeing them as often. um, or when they have a better support system. When they have a better support system, they're not, um, I guess, as easily able to, or prone, I guess you could say, to latch on to somebody outside of their network. They've got, friends and family, which is good. And that's really how you want it to be. You want it to be people who are regularly in their life that they can reach out to and that they know. Um, but in the cases where I do follow them, uh, it can be very rewarding, but also really challenging emotionally at times.
What do you mean by that?
Um, for example, I had a patient that I saw for over 8 years, and you don't realize how close you get to the patients that you see over that period of time. And it's so slow and so insidious how you get to know their family and you get to know about the grandchildren and getting gifts and celebrating holidays. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
But I always try to look for the good that's there, for the good experiences that were had, and for the mark that you leave. And that's another thing too that you don't really realize. You don't really realize the mark that you leave on a patient's family, or the family still reaches out. I would see this patient on a certain day of the week every week, and they have messaged me on that day ever since then, just saying, that they miss seeing me, they miss my face, they miss the energy that I bring. They don't really realize it until you stop coming, also, and
Hmm.
that can make it really hard for them as well. But trying to look for the good in those situations. And the last time I saw the patient in her home, unfortunately, she was obviously not doing very well. And so we had to call 911. And it's kind of a mixed bag, the experience that you'll get. We have amazing EMS and amazing fire here in Vegas. And so it is usually a very good experience. But this particular crew was just, if I could have handpicked the crew to show up and care for this patient, this is the crew that I would pick for the last time, to carry her out of her home for the very last time. They were so compassionate and so competent and so just absolutely amazing to the patient and the family, who the anxiety level was like, I mean, literally running around outside, inside, like it was just madness. And you have sympathy and you try to be there for them, but looking for the good things. I'm so glad that those clinicians were able to show up, and I was so touched by that and so impacted by that that I made a video. And normally, when I call 911 for a patient, I'm so good. I'm so neurotic about, I know the unit number, I know what part of, what branch of fire they're in, and I know all the things, and I could put that in my documentation. I'm like, oh my gosh, afterwards, I didn't even ask their unit, and they just did so amazing. I barely even noticed, what company it was. And so I kind of had just put a video out, not really being specific for, patient privacy, for respect for that, and for HIPAA, of course. Just saying, you know what, I can't really get specific, but this crew just did a really good job for this patient. And in the time, the patient was still hospitalized, which she had been in and out of the hospital so many times, it was not a new thing. I had no idea the direction it would go from that point. And so I just kind of put it out there, like, hey, they just did such an amazing job. And it was like the most amazing experience. The responses that I got from people in EMS and in fire, just, first of all, y'all don't get, people don't say thank you to you, do they? Because just to hear that, like,
Not very often.
people were just like, oh my gosh, for someone to come on here and say thank you, you did a good job. Like, it just meant so much. And it it's funny because there was somebody in like Pennsylvania who had a friend who was like, I want to say in either training or HR, that worked at that specific company, that this girl in Pennsylvania sent it on Facebook to her. My post was not on Facebook, first of all. Let's start with that. And eventually it got back to that crew, and the crew was just like overwhelmed, like just so happy to be, recognized and appreciated. And I'm like, how do I, show this crew that they're so amazing besides like blasting it out there, which I will never miss an opportunity to recognize somebody doing a good job with what they do, especially in something as impactful as EMS and fire or any, first responder. And so I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna bring snacks. Y'all joke about Uncrustables and energy drinks and all this stuff." So I just went to our local Costco business and just bought a trunk full of stuff. And I was like, that's not enough. And I was like, well, you guys are always out. You guys are always out and about. So let me just get some gift cards. And I remember I had my daughter with me and we're coming home from I don't even remember where. And we went through the Taco Bell drive-through and got gift certificates. And she was like, okay, this is weird. Didn't get any food. Then we went through, a mile down the road, the Starbucks drive-through. Didn't get anything. Got some gift cards. And she's like, what are we doing, Mom? And we went to three or four places and just got gift cards. And I was like, this is, I just really want to show them the best that I can, that they really did a good job. And so I think, I think it was 2 days after that that the patient really took a turn. And it just was so much more meaningful that that could be her last experience, to have that crew that just did so amazing. And just the response that I got from making that post. You guys just do such an amazing job. And you just, after you do your thing, you kind of just disappear in the wind. And a lot of times people are so focused on maintaining the situation of dealing with the patient and they're at the hospital and this and that, that you just, I think a lot of people, it just goes kind of unseen or forgotten. And I think that that is a tragedy. And so that will never be me again. And so it just hit me really deep, but I'm glad that there was a lot of good people surrounding that situation and a lot of good experience, that ultimately I could say that it touched me really deep. But I know that that patient is somewhere just nodding down at me like that was the time and that's what she chose.
You have a very unique outlook on EMS, and it is quite refreshing. It is quite refreshing.
That's, I think more people should know about it, and if they did, they would appreciate it and respect it. And it's, to me, it is awful that a you could get to the point of being a master prepared nurse and probably had zero conversation in any level of that education about EMS. It's ridiculous. You learn about, everybody else in the hospital. You learn about, the others in the interdisciplinary team. And it's just shocking how I could get to the level of a master prepared registered nurse and have really no conversations about EMS in any level of that education. Looking back to a year ago when I fell into EMS TikTok, looking back at the misunderstandings and the very little amount of information and knowledge I had about EMS, I'm certain that the lay person has even less than that. And I think that that is awful and something definitely should be done about that. So, certainly, if there's any way that I can be an advocate or a very loud, obnoxious voice of appreciation, I will definitely be that person.
Well, and that's what we're going to talk about next. Like one of your titles is EMS advocate. So why do you feel so strongly about this subject that you need to advocate for EMS? Like what's pulling you that direction?
I think when I fell into EMS TikTok again about a year ago, probably even less, I made a post and it just went crazy viral. And the feedback I got, I was so shocked, at how many people were willing to, in a very positive way, educate somebody who was earnestly trying to understand and get more information, and just how well I was received. I mean, I'm a nurse, and I don't think it's a secret about the relationship between nursing and like Mean Girls. And there is just not that level of camaraderie, support, um, in that area, I believe. And so how I was just welcomed with open arms, full of just information and resources, and people willing to um, just start that conversation really took me back, especially given their history of potentially a lot of bad interactions with nurses, which I didn't even know that there was like a nurse versus paramedic, uh, stereotype situation. Because here I'm just in home health. Like I call you guys and you guys take my patient and you do a fantastic job. And the only real experience I had before that with EMS was, doing my rotation and clinicals in the ED here in the hospital during school. And that hospital, I believe, did such an amazing job of, appreciating the paramedics, the EMS that came through. There was such a good relationship. So I didn't even realize like that was a thing. And so just, I think, understanding and learning what the more norm type situation is really just surprised me. And I think it just bothers me that people know so little about the industry, and the industry is so underappreciated. I didn't even know that in a lot of areas, EMS is not considered like an essential service. Are you kidding me right now? What's more essential than EMS? I mean, if the president himself was in crisis, who would he call? EMS. He would call medical people. I just, that totally boggles my mind. And because of how, when I learned how EMS is set up and how it, started, in its relationship to transportation versus, more medical, it seems to be kind of limiting in the ability to financially appreciate those working in EMS. And I think that that is terrible. And so I think when you know better, you feel compelled to do better. And so now that I do know better, I'm not just going to sit on my hands with that information. That would make me something that I'm not. That's not me at all. I'm a very loud person. And when I get my heart behind something, you're going to know about it. You may not like the presentation, but you're going to know about it.
Well, I think you should move to New Mexico and come and advocate for us over here.
I'm like, sometimes I hear these stories that people tell me, and I love hearing the stories, but I'm like, that's it. Whose lawn do I need to stand outside? What sign do I need to say? Where do I need to write a letter? It just is so frustrating. I mean, we talk in nursing about we're underpaid and we're mistreated, and a lot of that is definitely valid. There's, violence in hospitals and things like that, but I think that to the degree it is significantly worse in EMS. The fight needs to be louder and stronger for that service because, as we've seen, for example, with the pandemic, we need you guys and we need you guys to be good, like good. We need you to be healthy. We need you to be happy. We need you to be well taken care of. We need your families to be good, which a lot of times has to do with how much money is in, you're receiving for the services that you're doing. Let's be honest. Most people aren't doing EMS for money, but money needs to be a part of that. And in order to have good people stay in that industry, that needs to be a part of it. And I think we are not there.
Oh, we're definitely not there. I will say it has progressed significantly from the 70s to where we are now. But we
Thank
have
goodness.
we have cities here, like several thousands of people, large cities that rely on a completely volunteer service still.
And I didn't even, I'm in Las Vegas, and I don't know if we even have that here, but it seems more like a rural thing. And so here I am in my bubble. And so when people are, through TikTok talking to me and they're like, I'm a volunteer fireman or I'm a volunteer medic. And I'm like, what is that? Well, I don't understand that. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. So just really learning about that has been so eye-opening.
It is interesting. I started out as a volunteer firefighter EMT basic, and I have not met a better group of people than those people who do it for free. You know what I
You
mean?
would have to be. You would
Yeah.
literally have to be. Why else would you be doing? I mean, I would bet money on that. I would definitely agree that that would have to be the case because what else would bring you to do something like that? Y'all are better than me. You better than so many people. I mean, because nobody's doing. If you're not in it, they can't do it. I mean, let's face it. A lot of people can't hack that. They literally can't physically or mentally or emotionally handle that. And so people who are doing that, who are beating themselves up, killing themselves for what they're doing to help us, needs to be recognized a lot more than it is now.
Yeah, I think it's moving in the right direction. I think we're getting
That's
there.
good. Because we're all getting loud. Look at us, we're getting
Yes.
loud.
So I do want to talk a little bit about the first TikTok video that I saw you in, and I won't say names, but it was about a nurse who was
Mm,
bashing on EMS for picking up a patient from a nursing home, I believe. And just like not understanding what EMS does, just saying, well, the doctor said it, so you need to do it. Come do your job. You don't need patient information. You don't need paperwork. You don't need anything else. Put the patient on the cot and get out of here. How did
yes.
that
And
make you feel?
you know what? I can't even tell you how many people sent that video to me. And it's funny now because that content creator is a very good friend of mine now because of the type of person that she is. Because there's a lot of people who get on TikTok very loud and very wrong. And
And very
when they're,
fast.
yes. And when they're called out, it's just in their nature to dig their heels in and either disappear or justify why they did what they did. And with this specific content creator, that's not what she did at all. And we all, I think, were shocked by that in a very good way. I actually reached out to her because I do push the envelope and was like, let's have a conversation. Let's do a live. Who in their right mind would get on a live with Nurse Andrea and innumerable pissed off EMS TikTok people and just submit themselves to here's where I'm coming from. This is my level of understanding. I'm sorry, now that I know better, I can do better. And that's exactly what she did. And ever since then, if you look at her content after that, she's so much more in support of A, educating yourself. If you are so passionate to get onto TikTok and make a post like that, look into maybe all the other angles of that. Why is it like that? And so, one, she submit herself to receive more education, but then when she had that education and knowledge, she did better. She did a hell of a lot better. So, I don't want to necessarily name drop her because I don't, wouldn't want to do that without her permission, but absolutely love that content creator. And now she is, a huge advocate as well. But yes, like you said, I myself didn't even know about that as being kind of a typical situation that happens in long-term care facilities where you guys will be called out because the doctor orders it. In home health, I think we have a little bit more play. Like ain't no doctor going to order me to call 911 if the patient doesn't like, no, I'm sorry. But I think it does take a certain type of person and a certain type of confidence and experience level that a lot of nurses, because of the statistically short degree, length of career, don't ever get there to where they can be like, cool, doc, no, have a nice day. Um, and so I didn't realize that, on a simple doctor's order, they're just blanket calling you guys, even if the patient doesn't want those services, and certainly if they don't need those services. And then they're upset when the Uber ride just doesn't follow the doctor's order, a doctor who has no authority over them, they just don't take them. Like if you would have explained that situation as totally naive Andrea a year ago before I even understood EMS, I would have been like, that that just sounds ridiculous to an outsider, let alone somebody who understands it. But if that's where you spend most of your experience and that is the culture, of course that's anybody else thinking, any type of dissenting opinion against that is going to seem like the weird. We're the weird ones to people who have spent their whole career working in long-term care. We're the weird ones for thinking a patient should have the right to choose. And so it's just a matter of providing that education to people who are open-minded, and that is the key. So learning about some of these kind of stereotypes has been just really interesting for me.
You know what the other part of that key is, though?
Hmm.
Is that you gave her the platform and the ability to speak up when not a lot of people would have gotten that opportunity. So she, like, if you had not stepped in and said, "Hey, let's talk about this," as shitty as it sounds, like she would have just gotten destroyed by all of those people on social media, whether it's other nurses, paramedics, EMTs, lay people who have no idea what they're talking about, right? Like you gave her that platform to be able to share that. And it's so easy. It's so easy to see it so single-sided. And even when you're describing how she only saw it
Hmm.
single-sided, like everybody else who's watching this TikTok video of her exposing herself like this is also only watching it single-sided, which makes it kind of frustrating, right? Because, like, it's so hard. And having done this for so many years, like, I don't know if you know much about EKGs, but when we look at EKGs, right, for somebody who's having chest pain, we're putting on all of these stickers and it's to look at different angles of the heart. And we're doing that so that we can see the whole picture and not just part of the picture. And I think people forget that TikTok is just part of the picture. It's not the whole picture. And instead of being understanding, everybody's first reaction is defense and attack. And that that can be heartbreaking for people. That can be devastating to people in a cancel culture.
Yes, 100%. And I think that, like you were saying, it just would have been attack, attack. And unfortunately, how social media is into perpetuity, it would have been that way because somebody will see that post for the first time 5 years from now.
Yeah.
And so it's not something that people will just forget and get over. But I think because she did have the opportunity and was willing to do that, I think people overwhelmingly accepted her apology and willingness to learn more and educate herself. And I can guarantee you that in her workplace now, she sees it a different way and helps others to see it that way as well, and to challenge some of the cultural ideologies that box us in certain places like LTC, which will definitely help EMS. I can't imagine to not have paperwork and a good report, and just the amount of people who told me that's how it is boggles my whole mind. That was probably one of the first things that really stood out to me is my initial post falling into EMS TikTok was about a call for a patient where I had to call 911. And I was so bothered by the fact that they asked me if the patient was on beta blockers, and I didn't know the answer. I was so bothered by that because I usually have a printed 485 care plan for that patient with their meds, with the narrative, with all of their diagnosis, their past surgical history, all of the medications that they're on, everything, all of their diagnoses that I will then give to and provide a verbal report to EMS. And so when they're like, I think it was Shade Tree Cardiology, props to him. He stitched the video and was like, first of all, you were still there when they showed up. And multiple other creators said that as well. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, if I call 911 and then I leave, that's patient abandonment. People don't do that. And they're like, hell yeah, they do. That's what usually happens. The home health nurse calls and gets into her car and immediately leaves. And I'm like, oh, hell no. And this is after I had been a director of nursing. And I was like, that nurse would be immediately fired and reported to the board of nursing if they work for me and they did that. Either you can't justify calling 911 because it's not an emergency. Or if it is, it's emergent enough that it requires you to stay with the patient for safety. Um, so, just learning some of these stereotypes has just been wild for me.
But I mean, I'm not that they're stereotypes for a reason, right? And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that we're all very smart and go out of our way to learn every single day and do all of the things and we're the smartest, sharpest tools in the shed, because there is the other side of that stereotype. There are a lot of people that still show up with their shirts untucked and their boots unzipped and just looking very disheveled. And that also makes us as a whole look bad, right? But
Hmm.
on the flip side of that, also, there are nurses that are like that. There are doctors that are like that. There are police
Absolutely.
officers, firefighters, McDonald's workers. You know what I mean? Like, this
Absolutely.
is where we're at in our culture, in our society.
Hmm.
There's not really an in between. There's a little bit of an in between, but it's either one or the other, and that makes it hard to progress our profession.
Absolutely. Definitely. Trying to be better than what that stereotype is definitely going to be the challenge.
Yeah. Which is why you see a lot of like good paramedics, really smart ones that are moving on to either become nurses or become doctors or become PAs or even flight paramedics,
Yes.
there's no pull to keep people in the field because there's no incentive for that.
Right. And I think that that's a big problem.
Yes.
We're
Yes, it is a
losing a
huge
lot of
problem.
smart people. We're all, the wisdom is being lost on people. I remember when I was in nursing school, there was a phenomenal paramedic in the ED that I was in. And he's like, yeah, I'm doing the paramedic to RN program. And I was like, why the hell would you do that? And he's like, well, money. And I'm like, what do you mean money? Like, what are you talking about? And he's like, do you know how much I make? And I'm like, how would I know how much you make? I'm here for free. I know nothing. And when he told me, I was like, but we call you to do IVs. What do you mean you make this amount? Um, so that was really surprising to me.
On average, $15 to $20 less an hour for paramedics in the field.
It is shocking to me that EMS still exists because of that, because people are still willing to submit to the torture. Like it just blows my mind. Like I'm just too loud and um, I just praise to you guys. Thank you so much for what you're doing. Like it's just it's really frustrating that that's how it is.
Yeah.
And like you highlighted, there is no way to really move up, and there is no incentive to keep the older, wiser generations in, EMS because they're wanting to move out for more opportunity or more money, and not in a greedy way. Just be able to have a decent standard of living,
Yep, just
right?
to be able to live. And that's a nationwide problem too, though. Like you can't gone
Yes.
are the days where you could work one full-time job and be able to afford a house and two kids and a significant other. That's so far gone. It's not even funny.
Oh,
But
yeah.
just to even make it so that you can survive, like some of the best EMTs I've ever met have been EMTs for like 10 or 15 years and are being
Wow.
forced to go into higher education because now they can't afford to live the way that they've been living happily for the last several years. And that's hard
Right.
too. Yeah, that is very hard for people in general, but
In learning a lot from the connections that I've made through EMS TikTok, that's another thing that I learned that none of y'all have just one job.
no.
You will be like a firefighter paramedic at this job on Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And then on Thursday and Friday, you're something through the county. And then on Saturday, you teach a EMT class and you're also a content creator and you also this, that, and the other. And I'm like, why do you guys just, is the ADHD that bad? And they're like, no, like I have a car payment and I have a house payment. That's it.
Yeah.
So that's it. My kids need to eat. That's all. So I think if you looked at a lot of industries where people have multiple jobs, I think that you would find EMS to be disproportionately higher than the norm for other career paths, for sure.
Nurses as well. I know a lot. I know you guys get paid well. Not enough, not even close to enough, but a lot of nurses also have secondary moonlight jobs, you know?
Yeah, I think teaching is a popular one, or like, a couple days a week at like a surgery center. I think we establish a standard of living and then we just want more. At
Yeah.
least that's the vibe I get from a lot of nurses. They're like, well, no, I have my house paid for and I have my cars paid for and this and that, and I can get my nails done. But like, I kind of want to go to Bali. So I'm just, I just work and save up for that or for this. And granted, that's not every situation. There's some people, I know a lot of people who work multiple jobs and they send money to family, or they have other situations. But yeah, you're totally right. 100%.
Yeah. It's an interesting way of life, but I feel like ultimately we are making a positive culture shift in the right direction. It's going to take a bunch of years, but I think with people like
Mhm.
you coming out, being loud, not holding back, I think that is super helpful, not only to the EMS profession, but also to the nursing profession. So you're doing really good. I really appreciate all of the things that you're doing and saying for EMS. You're bumping us up when clearly we're not able to take care of ourselves. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
One of the things that you had talked about was that you had taken care of the guy who had the wounds and he was at home and didn't have any family. And I'm so you said that he was hit on his scooter.
Yeah,
How often was he out on his scooter?
maybe once a week or less, and he would literally go a block to Super Walmart, get his, the necessities and stuff that he needed, and scooter back home. And I just been seeing him for years through multiple agencies. Wherever I would go, he would just follow me. And this is a young guy, hopes and dreams. He just wanted to get better so that the VA could help him, find a job. And he had a rough history with mental health because of his history in combat and things like that. And I don't remember if I put it in the what I sent you, but there was one time where he told me, he's like, Andrea, literally, uh, you know, my life is so terrible, especially and he was so upset at the thought of losing me coming there because his wounds were doing really well. He was a visit away from a discharge after years. And he's like, the thought of losing you, I had two full insulin syringes in my abdomen last night that I was about to push. And I was like, oh my God. It just, for some people, we're everything that they have in their life. And it three times today, Sam. I'm gonna cry again. But he just, I try to look for the good when something tragic happens, and it's like he found the reason for him to live in that moment, the connection that he had, and he was doing just so well. He was in a good, mental space and everything at the time that he died, and so, it could have been a lot worse, and so trying to think of where he was in terms of a good in time to go, and he had accomplished a lot of things in his life, and to see that part of his life, that chapter of his life with the wounds and all that kind of come to an end, and just be in a good mental space after a long time of mental health struggles, that was his time. That's when he was supposed to go. Like he had reached his ultimate, like Maslow's hierarchy. Boom, he's there. He's good. I'm not there. Like I feel like I'm in like step one or step two, and it may take me forever to get there, but some people don't need their whole life for that.
They
Some
don't.
people don't need that. And so yeah, it's hard. And sometimes I'll just be driving to a patient and I'll just like, I'm not a crier, Sam. You would never know. I am not a crier whatsoever. Like you just, I don't know, just the conversation, everything brought it out of me. Like when my husband finds out I'm crying on a podcast, he's been mind blown. I'm crying more on this podcast than he's seen in our in marriage. So this is just wild for me, but I will just be, driving around and just randomly think of that and just be like, you know, or this other lady. There's been a handful who I've just been really close to seeing for a long time that I'm like, I cry more for them than if X family member would have died,
Yeah.
because because not all family is blood and not all blood is family. And these people do sometimes become your family.
Grief was described to me in such a way the other day that it really like it resonated with me. And somebody described it as when something happens and the grief process starts, you have a little box. It's a very tiny box with a big red button. And you have a little ball bouncing in the box, and it's going to hit that button multiple times.
Mm,
But as time goes on, the box gets bigger, the button stays the same size. So every once in a while, that ball is going to randomly hit that button, and you're going to be very upset, and you don't know why because it's completely random, but it still happens. And that was just such a like, that
yes.
is a very good description of what grief is. Yeah, and that's what that reminded me of. Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that because the sensitivity doesn't necessarily change. You're still going to feel that ooh, ting, gut punch almost the same way like it just happened. But like you said, it becomes kind of less often. And with your box being bigger, your like knowledge and comprehension of that becomes on a higher level to where you are better able to cope when that button does get smashed. So great analogy. I love that.
Yeah, it was great.
Love that.
Andrea, I want to give you the next 15 minutes to kind of tell us where we can find you, and then any opportunity to talk about anything that you feel that we didn't discuss during this episode.
For sure. So I'm primarily on TikTok, which is at Nurse Andrea Law. I'm starting to go into IG, but you won't, find the older stuff, the oldie but goodie stuff there. The algorithm is just better on TikTok, sorry. Um,
It's true.
I'm also working, I can't say too much, but I'm working on a couple projects with a bunch of other absolutely amazing people that I think will do a lot to serve as the role of advocate for EMS, but also all first responders. Can't talk too much about it, but we will definitely be posting on TikTok when we do a final release of that information. Let's see, as far as what else did I really want to talk about? I think really just to wrap up, I think that whatever field that you are in, whether it's nursing or EMS or something not even in the medical industry. I think that maybe the overall message that kind of the podcast went towards is always strive to know better. And then when you do know better, you have greater responsibility to do better in whatever that is. So don't ever stop learning. Don't ever stop asking questions. Don't ever stop challenging things that feel wrong, policies that feel wrong in a respectful way. Um, and then when you do have that knowledge, do better. Be better to the people coming into the industry. This is not an easy industry to be in, and it doesn't need to be like it used to be in healthcare, where the old crotchety nurses or people in EMS or what other field uh, just had kind of an unofficial hazing. And if you couldn't hack it, just leave. It doesn't need to be like that. We need to be so much better to the students and the people coming into these industries. They deserve a lot better than we did. And we know that because we went through that. And so I think that is probably my greatest message I feel really strongly about is to know better means to do better. And we are all responsible individually for that.
That's a great message. I have two more questions for you.
Yes, absolutely.
Have you done a third ride on an ambulance yet?
I have not been able to. And since I've made the connection with that local agency, when I brought all those snacks and stuff, I was thinking about reaching out and maybe even going on a ride along with that crew. It is really challenging with my home situation because I have two twin toddler boys who are actively trying to kill themselves and everybody else around them. So time is really something difficult to manage, as we talked about. Um, but I want to do all the things. I want to go on BLS rig. I want to go on ALS. I want to do flight. I want to, I tell my husband often, and he's tired of hearing of it, but like my dream is to literally just fly to different places around the country and go on ride-alongs. Am I the biggest nerd ever for wanting to
No.
do that? Like, you don't even have to pay me. I just want to, let me go to this city. Let me go out to Florida and go fly, helicopter with this crew. Let me go then to North Carolina and go see what it's like there. Let me go to, New England area and back over here to California and just do all the things. So it's hard to, especially when you have ADHD, manage all the things that you want to do with the things that you have to do. And so um, I am challenging myself though to do that within the next month to go out, and I'm trying to find a crew and a company that will kind of give me a little leeway to create some videos and stuff so that I can kind of vlog that path for everybody. And then I've got somebody working on trying to record me doing, oh, what is it called? What's the road course called that you guys do?
Oh, well, there's a couple of different names, but Evok,
Yes, yes.
yeah.
They're like, okay, we're gonna put 10 cameras and watch Andrea wreck this car, is essentially what that video is gonna be titled. But yes, I'm so excited to try all those things and do all those things because, like I said, my desire to learn more and do better is so strong, and I think that that is a big part of it. And I think that that's something that should be required in the curriculum. They try to cram a lot in nursing school, so it's hard to add more to that burden. But I think that, especially as a community nurse, that would have been really helpful for me in nursing school to have had that experience.
I agree 100%, but also flipped, right? I think that more paramedics should have to do in-hospital time, clinic time, even home health, wound care time. You know what I mean? We do our bare minimum
Hmm.
clinicals where it's like
Sure.
you only call us for the IV, or if there's a level one trauma, I'm super excited. I'm going to go watch this person get fixed up. No, I think we should do it right, right? Like they should learn the charting system. They should learn all of the aspects for nursing and not just the cool EMS fun side. I completely agree. I often find myself advocating more for nurses on the EMS side because of getting to work in, and I don't know how familiar you are with the flight perspective, but flight nurses and flight paramedics are at the same level.
Okay, that makes sense.
We can do different things, but we are
Right.
at the exact same level. So I trust my nursing partner as much as they trust me. And when you're in a confined space like that, like you need to be able to trust each other. And you learn this whole other
Absolutely.
side about these nurses that you're like, oh, okay, you're not just like math smart. You're smart, smart. Okay, we can be friends. Like, you know what I mean?
I totally know what you mean. And I've heard that especially in flight, it's the best combo when you have the flight nurse with the flight paramedic for those two different kind of thought processes. So that does seem to be very exciting
Yes,
to learn
that
more about.
that combination can be unstoppable if left unregulated. I think that is a great combination. I have one more question for you though, and I just want to know, Andrea, because you did reference EMS Avenger earlier. Uh, are you proud of yourself?
Ooh, that is really a hard question. In a lot of things, yes. Oh, you're going to get me emotional again. Oof. I think that a lot of us in these industries hold ourselves to an impossible standard. But I just came across a video the other day where it was talking about this girl who was so caught up in thinking about tomorrow and meeting her goals that she forgot that she was in the middle of what she prayed for and worked so hard for so many years ago. So I think yes, I am proud of myself. I look back at all of the things I've accomplished, all the lives I've affected, and that means so much to me and to so many people. And that does make me so proud. I think I should be more proud, but I think it is also important to be humble. I think humility is also very important, and just remembering that for me, I'm a very spiritual person, and I know that everything that I've done and all the lives that I've touched were not necessarily just from me, but from a divine being who is there with me, guiding me and helping me. And that person is available. Uh, Rather, that experience can be available for anybody. And so I think it is a difficult balance to maintain being proud, but also being humble. And I think we all struggle with that a little bit.
I agree and disagree. But
Okay.
I want to let you know how proud of you that I am because it takes some guts to get up and do the things that you are doing.
Thank you so much for saying that. I really appreciate that.
Yes, you're doing huge things, not only for the EMS industry, but for the nursing industry. I know I said that earlier. You're doing huge things. Continue doing those things.
Thank you so much. That means so much coming from you.
Don't forget about your family. Don't forget about you. I hear you. I've heard you talk the entire time, and I've watched you, and you talk a lot about how much you're helping everybody else, but don't forget to help yourself.
That is such an important message, and we could hear it every day, and it wouldn't be enough. And we do need to focus more on mental health and self-care because we have to be our own
Not we.
best advocate.
I'm saying you, not we. I'm saying you, Andrea. You need to do
Thank you.
this. You need to stop. You need to take care of yourself, your beautiful little
Thank you.
babies. Okay?
Yes. Thank you so much. I needed that message today.
That's the only way we can keep getting you. That's the
Yes,
only, it's
that's a
for
great
selfish
point.
reasons. It's for selfish reasons.
I love it. Thank you. No, I needed to hear that message today. And I think a lot of people that listen to your podcast will also need to hear that message. And I think it's important that just as you individualize that to me, Andrea, I think for everybody listening to this, Sam's saying that to you guys too. Whether you're John, Steve, Joe, Susie, that message is for you too.
It is. Andrea, it has been phenomenal. It has been such a great. I was
Absolutely.
so excited when you said yes. I'm so glad that you came on and we
Thank
were able
you.
to get this time together.
Thank you so much. I am honored. Thank you so much. Hopefully, the message gets out there, and I hope that a lot of people are touched by what we talked about because I know I certainly am, and it was such a great experience for me. Thank you.
Good. All right, friend. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great day and thanks for coming on the 911 Nonsense podcast.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too. Bye, Andrea.
Thanks. Bye bye.
Thanks for tuning in. If you're enjoying the show and want to show your support, be sure to check out the Noon merch store on Bonfire. Find the link in the description below. Also, if you have any guest suggestions or if you're interested in being a guest on Noon yourself, visit the website at www.samspursuit.com to get in touch.